Welcome to Episode 2 of Project Fifth Element Police Car. In Episode 1, we started with the raw kit components and finished the car up to the weathering stage. Here, I weather using airbrush and pastel techniques. At the end, I'll install animated electronics in the light bar and fully illuminate all the running lights. Let's get cracking. Here we go with the weathering process. I'm starting with the bottom pan. Now, doing an acrylic wash is something I don't normally do anymore, but it seems to work the best for this bottom pan. If you go and watch my the Corbin Taxi tutorial, you'll see me do the same thing. It's a little thick. I'm going to add a little more water. This is standard acrylic. This is not Tamiya. This is not anything special. This is that cheap as dirt acrylic from from Hobby Lobby. Okay, so I'm just going to coat this bottom. This is just going to give us a little bit of a base for the weathering that we'll do with an airbrush. Coat this entire thing. I'm going to let this paint cook onto that surface for about 5 minutes and then wipe it free. I'm wiping it off from front to back, just to get a little bit of a streak happening, and then here on the sides I might wipe bottom to top. I've got a lot of excess buildup here that I'm going to wick away with Q-tips, especially in these pits. Save your black acrylic wash. We'll probably end up using that later. And only do that technique for the bottom pan. Don't do it to the top. The top is going to be strictly airbrush, at least to start. So what I'm doing is, this vehicle is traveling through a lot of smog and dirt, pollution. So we're doing stripes downward. So we're going to imagine what's leaking. Probably these guys here. So I'm going to do a little bit of streaking. This probably leaks up here. Again over here. I might darken these pits just a tiny bit. Darken that circle a little bit. Streaking. So you're telling a story of this guy traveling at high velocity and generating these streaks. Okay, so I imagine this is going to leak a lot here, so I'm going to really darken that and then add some aggressive streaks here. I'm going to make that almost black down here. By the way, I'm airbrushing not with a straight black. There's a little bit of a gray mixed into this. It's not straight on black. I'm going to darken this pit. So you kind of see what we're doing here. Just okay, looking good. Maybe something real aggressive, asymmetrical here. Looking good. These are like I imagine these to be clamping pits, so they're getting beat up a lot. I'll probably do a little bit of chipping in there, but for now, I'm just going to darken those pits up a little. I'm going to darken inside these nozzles. I still want a lot of that silver showing through, so I'm going to kind of take it easy. I'm going to darken this area inside here. I'm going to do a big stain right here. And then streak it. This is traveling this way, so that little oil streak is going to go back. Okay, this little Egyptian medallion is pretty dark. So I'm going to dust it real lightly. And then inside of these nozzles, dark. Just keep that outer edge bright. Okay. I'm liking this a whole lot. What I'd like to do though is dig a little bit deeper into this weathering process and add some speckles, some spatters. I'm doing that using that same acrylic wash we mixed earlier and a brush that's been cut down. And I'm just going to, most of the paint has been flicked off of this. If I can show you what I'm doing. So I added some of that loose acrylic paint to this chip brush, but I want to get most of that off. I wouldn't normally do this above the model. This would be done somewhere else, but I got most of that off like that. Then I'll come into my model, and I think I'm going to add a little bit of spattering here. That was fantastic. And then a little here. And then probably some here. Right there. That just gives you a little more variety, a little more interest into that area. Just because this is looking so amazing, I decided to add a new part. So I just drew up the vector and laser cut it real quick. This is a screen that I decided would look pretty awesome. Right in that little circular pit. We'll apply this the same way we did the windshield screen and the back screen. Little spray 77, and then pop it right on. In hindsight, I think I should have painted this windshield dark, almost black, before I applied the covers, but I think what I'm going to do now is just darken up this entire windshield so it doesn't look so blue. And I used straight to me a medium gray on the grid, so that'll be really easy to touch back up. So when you do yours, I would recommend painting that windshield out almost black or a real dark gray before you apply the screen and the frame. I want to give this whole thing a slight misting to make it look a little less toy-like, more weathered to match the pan. And especially these white decals, we don't want those so bright. And I'm airbrushing from a distance, so I'm pretty far away. I'm like out of camera range, actually, just to give it a little bit of a tone down. I just finished a very deluxe, advanced tutorial on weathering, and I go into a little more detail why I do this, just to desaturate and darken. But that's what we're doing. And we're also, we're not going to worry about the windshield, the headlight covers. Just go ahead and darken those up too. Looking at some of these reference shots, I can see some streaking happening from the doors down, and I'll continue that onto the bumper. And I also, when you look really close, there's some really black streaks happening at the top of that windshield grid. Off of this rear windshield. So the light bar goes here. Oh, it's a little heavy, but I'm sure that'll be nice. And then a little more subtle, streaking downwards. Also, don't forget to weather your light bar. I'm still using that really dark gray. I'm not afraid to weather on top of that these clear castings, because the LED lights I'm planning on installing are very bright. I'm adding these dark streaks. I have some pastel powders mixed up, a little bit of brown, mostly black. There's just a little bit of a warm tone to it. And what I'm going to do is these body lines are caked with dirt. So instead of airbrushing that, I want a more organic, granular feel to this. So I'm just going to paint on some of this pastel powder. Just kind of wipe it on. And then when I'm happy with the look, I will seal it with crystal clear. I'm going to define this body line just a little bit more by drawing on that crease with a pencil. And then I'm going to introduce a line right here. It's like a hood line. I'm looking at my reference shot, and it's right here on this edge, so just very simply draw it on. A black grease pencil also does wonders. You can draw on new panel lines, deepen up existing panel lines. I wanted to deepen up these door panels a little bit, so this grease pencil is amazing for this. We have one last bit of weathering business to attend to, and that's the scrapes and scuffs along the bottom pan. I'm doing this with cheap black acrylic, and there's a little bit of a red scrape too. I'll do that with a little bit of red mixed into this black. So I'm applying this, my favorite technique, with the little incense stick. It leaves a little bit more of an organic feeling to the scrapes. And I'm just going to drag this along and create a story of this being smashed up against objects. The reason I'm using this cheap acrylic is it's easier to wipe off if you don't like what you just did. Tamiya, much harder to wipe away. that is it for the weathering and painting on this project. It is time to get to work on electronics for the light bar. For now, the electronics I'm installing in the light bar are just available on Amazon. These are from Evan Designs. Very simple police car setup. Meanwhile, Voodoo Effects is working on a much more comprehensive lighting kit. I think these will do for now. So we've got blinkers for the light bar blue on one side, blinkers blue on the other, 3 each for the red cones on the ends. Let's see what these look like. The flashing speed is adjustable with this little switch here, so slow blinks and faster blinks, faster yet, and then I think the last position is off. Yep. I'm not turning this tutorial into an electronics tutorial, so I'm just kind of going over these steps really quick. I've fed up all of my blinkers through a hole I made that sits behind the light bar, so it's just behind that light bar. I've got my groups organized here with some masking tape, and I've got my light bar prepared in the back with, if you can see this, I've got 3 holes here, 3 holes here, 3 holes there. So all of these lights will be hot glued with just a little spot of hot glue and installed into the back of those translucent pieces. I've got all the lights hot glued into their holes. Now I'm going to cinch in these wires so that this can rest flush. Okay, I'm adjusting the switch on the bottom. That's the first speed. Second speed. Third speed. I believe that's the fastest speed. Yep. Pretty nice effect for such an inexpensive light kit. Let me show you how I'm going to handle these running lights for the front and the back. I cut a spacer that I'll glue inside this edge, keep it below that edge so the top meets up to the pan. So I'll glue that down, and then this will glue to that edge, which will keep these about 1.5 inches or so away, about 1 inch away from the running lights, so we don't get those hot spots. It'll be back a little bit. So I've got this set up on a piece of styrene, just attached to that. I've got the white set up on styrene. Those will illuminate the front same way. I've got a piece that'll glue right into here, that'll glue to that. I used a combination of hot glue and CA glue with spray kicker. I'm using these 4 chip lights, also from Evans Designs. They're available on Amazon also. And I'm going to be hot gluing these behind the 4 upper lights. And for being so tiny, they do an amazing job of lighting those up. Okay, a little bit of hot glue later. There we go. 4 top lights active. Okay, I've got backlights all connected, positive and negative to the front lights, positive and negative to all of the siren police bar lights. Now I'm going to shrink tube all of these connections, and the way I'm powering this is everything is connecting to a DC transformer plug. It's all powered on right now. So I'm going to extend this. This is just a temporary connection, so I'll extend that with a really long wire connection. I'll drill a hole in the bottom pan to accept that, and then the DC jack will just plug in underneath the model to that connection and everything will power up. Okay guys, the moment of truth. It's plugging into the DC power. There we go, everything is working. I'm going to be mounting this DC jack into the back of this hull just by drilling a hole and hot gluing that connection right there. Very tight fit, so that'll be really easy to secure into place. There's our plug in a very inconspicuous spot. All the lights are working. We've got these amazing light bar effects. Look how bright these headlights are. Very cool. 2 days to build this, a full day to install the electronics, and there's the finished cop car. Really happy with how this turned out. I love this lighting effect. Because we dremeled out those windows, I can see a little bit of that light action happening inside of that cab. Even though there's no interior, it's pretty cool to be able to see some light in there. I hope I was able to teach you some new skills. I hope I gave you some confidence in case you decide to build this or something like it. All of these tips and tricks can be used in so many different applications. This concludes Project Fifth Element Police Car. To learn how I created this replica and get info on how to obtain one, visit the links in the video description. Click subscribe to be notified when new material goes live, and share with your friends if you find this content useful. Thanks for watching.